Hello, welcome in. I am here to share the introduction of my new book, A More Perfect Parent, How to Thwart Rebellion and Secure a More Stable Home. It's available on Amazon, but I thought I would give you a snippet for free for those that are interested and whatnot. I even broke out my Mr. Rogers sweater for this. So here goes, the introduction of A More Perfect Parent, How to Thwart Rebellion and Secure a More Stable Home, Book 1, a preamble. A young man stands in a cold, sterile room, unaware of the dynamic shift that will shortly take hold of his life. His life to that point has largely been inconsequential, and any notion of legacy is yet to be understood. And yet he stands in the room, processing the events about to unfold, as the next few hours will not only provide substantial consequence for his existence, but also will pull the questions of meaning, substance, and legacy directly into the forefront of his conscious thinking. The next hours will change his life. A little green line climbs and falls on a pale black canvas. The time for processing the upcoming events becomes shorter and shorter as the variance in the height and depth of the lines increases. Surrounded by lab coats and sterile equipment, I feel that the backdrop of such a shift offers little help in grasping the gravity of what's happening. Then 4 little words are spoken. It's time to push. With those words, the impending reality hits like a stone thrown into a still pond, sending ripples in every direction, highlighted by the sunlight above, whose beams would then be scattered among the ripples in every direction of thought, allowing no singular focus to prevail. No anticipatory thoughts regarding this moment have adequately prepared him for the following series of events that would lead to the moment when the nurse hands that young man his firstborn child, a daughter, a delicate, fragile creature placed completely in his care. In that moment, the earth seems to shift, and all purpose redirected into an effort to protect this delicate newborn now trusted to those primarily charged with her care, her parents. The familiar story has been told and retold by countless first-time parents across the globe. Although a seeming familiarity exists, our reaction to specific feeling is different. Some cry uncontrollably, some sit in somber reflection, some even seem to disappear in the moment of bliss, but regardless of the physical manifestation of thought, it is an overwhelming one in itself. It is humbling. It is scary. It is horrifying. It is brilliant. It is powerful. It is. While I cannot speak definitively on the reactions of every parent as they hold their first child, I am fairly confident that many parents set out, at least initially, to do right by the task assigned to them. To this point, I have never heard a new father or new mother declare how poorly they wanted to uphold the role of guardian, mentor, protector, provider, nurturer, etc. In fact, I have never heard personally any parent aspire to be the worst parent ever, much to the contrary. We often proclaim to pursue the opposite as we aspire to be the world's greatest dad or the world's greatest mom. Yet many of our aspirations fall short as we struggle to measure up and figure out just how to successfully complete the task assumed. What begins a journey of great expectations filled with love, joy, triumph, and sentiment seems to mellow out in exchange for a roller coaster ride helplessly beyond the controls of our parenting decisions, subjecting us to a fate worthy of Ulysses and his perilous journey home. Statistics overwhelmingly support this trend. Even though children reared in abusive, both verbally and physically, households would seem to be the greatest advocates against such parenting, they remain highly likely to repeat the same mistakes. The same is true of alcoholic or drug-addicted parents whose shortcomings in various addictions cast such a shadow that their children are raised largely unseen in the complete darkness, with only a small flicker of hope their fragile lives may find any meaningful reprieve from such darkness. Even in cases where such obvious abuse is absent, new mothers often exhibit the tendencies they loathed about their own mothers, and new fathers quickly fall into the traps their own father set many years before. The trend is well recorded and amply studied. Indeed, even children of divorced homes who acknowledge a hope in a better relationship are more likely to find themselves later divorced. So what is the problem, the disconnect? Is it that we're not resilient enough, strong enough, smart enough? Or is it simply a lack of understanding regarding what a parent is, what a child is, and what a relationship is? In other words, have we adequately defined what it means to be a good parent? And do we understand and believe that being one is possible? As I held my daughter in my arms, still standing in the cold, sterile hospital room, my immediate reaction was docile. As I looked into those big blue eyes, and she attempted to focus back into mine, I couldn't shake a single thought permeating through my consciousness. Dear God, please don't let me screw this up. Over and over, that thought penetrated. I was now in control of a human being, an actual human being other than myself. She was placed in my care, my tutelage, my mentorship, my authority, my life, my circumstance, my passion, my judgments, my aspiration, my hopes, my fears, my everything now had to adjust to a new norm. The world suddenly transformed. My actions now carried generational consequences. In response, I would resolve to do the job as best as I could. But where would I start? How would I know what good parenting is? How could I be certain of its existence? How would I know if I had succeeded or if I had failed? Since that day 16 years ago, I have searched these questions intently. Over that time, I have had the honor of holding 3 more newborns in my arm for the very first time and processing the aforementioned thoughts over and over again each time. This was especially true of my 3rd child, a son, birthed at a point in my life when I was being treated for Hodgkin lymphoma and was in the throes of chemotherapy while my wife was giving birth. Even though my cancer prognosis was fairly positive from its initial discovery, cancer has a funny way of prioritizing things for those who allow it. When I held my son, I couldn't help but wonder if I had done enough, if I knew enough, if I was strong enough. As time marched on and my life continued, my resolve to get parenting right only increased. I would hold 1 more newborn following my son, which knowingly would be my last. As you hold your last, you understand quickly why the youngest child as often has a reputation for being favored. As a parent, you just want to hold on to that experience as long as you can, because in that moment, that first moment with each child, when they were placed in your arms, you got parenting right, and you knew it. Today, that young, naive man who once stood in that cold, sterile room is now a college professor with 4 children and an amazing wife who has walked by his side for more than 16 years. While I wish I could testify to years of flawless parenting, like many, my parenting choices have not always measured up to my expectations. However, the resolve to get it right has not diminished. In my active pursuit of finding a quality model of parenting, one that will stand the test of time, I stumbled across the answer in a seemingly unlikely place. Beyond my role as a parent, I've dedicated my life to teaching, specializing in the field of political science, specifically political theory. My undergraduate work focused on the development of leadership in different societies and how various forms of leadership affected the outcomes of those societies. My graduate work centered on American political thought, and I worked to grapple with the theoretical underpinnings of the constitutional system developed in America. This required not just a study of the Constitution itself, but also a study of the various ideas the founders wrestled with when they crafted what would become the most influential political documents in modern history. Within this study, I began to understand the overlap between the task assigned to a parent and the larger governmental structures we often vaguely understand. The more I connected the dots, the more convinced I became that the necessary connection exists between the lessons of government and the lessons of parenting. Ultimately, I developed a system of parenting that I've come to refer to as constitutional parenting. Ironically, many of the men who wrote the Constitution were not renowned for being great parents. However, in crafting a system of government based on years of political thought and experimentation, they were able to bring about a complex system of unique design that sought to encourage the best of people and mitigate potential evils. While many do not compare parenting to government, I have come to view them as inseparable. Is the process of parenting not a process of establishing rules, order, and general customs? Is it not about rules and order to ensure a guarantee the greater good of the family or those living within the same geographical borders? Is it not collective in every aspect? Over the years, the more I've analyzed the connections and implications of proper government to proper parenting, the more I have come to understand the principles put forth in the Constitution and the legacy laid down by those who crafted it. The following pages are dedicated to this connection. In the following chapters, I will illustrate the foundational purposes for our government and then share the lessons I have gleaned from those purposes as they apply to parenting. I will acknowledge that the following is not for the lighthearted, since many parents have adopted an abusive system of parenting without realizing it. The following chapters may challenge, offend, and potentially anger some readers. As previously mentioned, I do not think such parenting is overtly intentional, but rather the product of a series of causal events forged in ignorance and cemented by pride, habit, or both. As such, the following pages are intended to inform, challenge, instruct, and hopefully inspire. By no means am I setting out to establish perfect parenting, but rather to establish a basis for a conversation about better parenting, More Perfect Parenting. If we succeed, the consequences will extend not only to our offspring, but also to ourselves and our posterity. That's the introduction, guys. I appreciate it. If you check it out, let me know what you think.